Entitled mother-in-law who crashed my honeymoon is now suing me for my late wife's inheritance, claiming I manipulated her dying daughter. I'm 34, a pretty normal guy with a job, bills, and until recently, a wife named Rachel. Rachel was everything to me. We met in college and built a life together, and I thought we were going to grow old with each other. But life threw us a curveball. Rachel got sick fast. Cancer. We tried everything, but in the end, it took her. She was only 32. Rachel had been the most caring, grounded person I'd ever met. She didn't come from much, but she worked hard, built a career, and planned her future with a clear head. She was also smart enough to know her mother, Sandra, was a problem. Sandra always had a certain way of making things about herself and creating drama wherever she went. But Rachel just loved her mom despite all that. She thought she could handle her. From day one, Sandra never liked me. She made it obvious, too. In those little digs and jabs she'd slip into every conversation. When Rachel and I were dating, Sandra would constantly remind her of her family obligations, especially when it involved money. Sandra made herself the center of every family gathering, every holiday, and every conversation, to the point where I wondered if she could actually function if the world didn't revolve around her. It wasn't just dislike, either. Sandra was entitled. It didn't matter that Rachel was her daughter. Sandra seemed to think Rachel's success was somehow hers to claim. She'd brag to her friends about all the things Rachel had accomplished, painting herself as some selfless mother who'd done it all for her kid. But then she'd turn around and tell Rachel how she owed her for all that sacrifice. It got weird when Sandra started inserting herself in our lives as if she was a permanent fixture. Right after Rachel and I got married, Sandra offered to come along on our honeymoon. I thought it was a joke at first. I mean, who invites themselves on someone else's honeymoon? But no, Sandra was serious. She tried to guilt-trip Rachel into taking her along, saying things like, "I'm not just a regular mother. I'm your best friend. Don't you want me there to celebrate?" I told Rachel it was insane, and thankfully she agreed. We shut that down quick, but Sandra sulked for weeks. Another time, Sandra decided that our home, the first house Rachel and I bought together, wasn't decorated right. While we were out one weekend, she let herself in. She'd somehow gotten a key from Rachel, just for emergencies, and redecorated half our living room. She'd moved the furniture, put up curtains, even added a few family photos, mostly of her and Rachel. She basically turned our home into her own personal shrine. Rachel was upset, but she didn't want to start a fight, so she let it slide. Not me, though. I took down all the stuff she'd put up and told Sandra that I'd be changing the locks. She didn't take it well. Sandra's intrusions never stopped. She'd volunteer me for things without asking, as if my time belonged to her. It wasn't anything big, but she'd say things like, "Oh, my son-in-law will fix that," or "He can help you move, don't worry." It didn't matter that I had my own life. Sandra acted like I was her personal handyman. I finally started telling people, "Sorry, Sandra didn't check with me before offering my help," and word got around that I wasn't her errand boy. That didn't sit well with Sandra either. Then came Rachel's diagnosis. Sandra was constantly around, hovering over Rachel like she was trying to play the perfect mother role, even though she wasn't really helping. She made everything about her. How hard it was for her, how sad it was for her. She'd say things like, "I don't know what I'd do if I lost you, Rachel," and then act hurt if Rachel was too tired to engage. It was like she expected Rachel to comfort her through her own illness. I had to ask her to leave a few times because her visits ended up exhausting Rachel. Sandra would act deeply offended, going on about how I didn't understand family. Rachel fought hard, but eventually the cancer won. She was gone. Before she passed, she left everything to me. The house, her savings, the little retirement she had. Rachel was careful, smart. She knew Sandra would try to take over after she was gone, and she wanted me to be free of her interference. It was her last way of protecting me, and I don't think I'll ever be able to thank her enough for that. Not a week after the funeral, Sandra called me, pretending to check in, but clearly fishing for info about the will. She kept saying things like, "Rachel would have wanted her family taken care of, and, we'll have to make some decisions together about her estate." I told her point blank that Rachel's will left everything to me, that Rachel's final wishes were clear, and that I was going to honor them. That didn't go over well. Sandra was livid. She told me I was disrespecting Rachel's memory, that I was a thief, and that I'd stolen what was rightfully hers. She didn't even care that Rachel was the one who made those decisions. To her, it was family money, and she was family. Blood, she'd say, as if that meant Rachel's hard work somehow belonged to her by default. It was disgusting. Sandra didn't stop there. She started telling everyone in the family that I'd manipulated Rachel into cutting her out, that I was some greedy, heartless husband who'd used Rachel's illness to take control of her money. She even got some of Rachel's cousins involved, and I started getting texts and calls asking why I took everything from Sandra. One of them even suggested I do the right thing and split everything with Sandra. Sandra couldn't stand the idea of not winning, so she went nuclear. She took me to court, challenging the will. She claimed Rachel hadn't been in her right mind when she made it, that I'd pressured her into it while she was sick. She dragged her own daughter's name through the mud, all to get her hands on Rachel's money. My lawyer told me not to worry. The will was airtight. Rachel had been meticulous, signing it months before she passed, and she made it clear that her choice was to protect me. Sandra didn't stand a chance, but she kept pushing, dragging out the lawsuit, costing me thousands in legal fees just to defend myself. While this mess was dragging on, Sandra was still trying to control me. She'd call me up, asking for updates on what I was doing with Rachel's assets, as she put it. She even demanded that I take her to look at the house listing when I decided to sell it, saying she'd needed to make sure it was priced fairly. I laughed at that and hung up, but she still wouldn't back down. Then came her biggest stunt yet. One day, I got a call from a family friend, asking if I'd be attending Rachel's memorial fundraiser. I had no idea what they were talking about. Turns out, Sandra had organized a big event in Rachel's name, telling people it was to help cover family expenses. And by family expenses, she meant herself. She'd even listed herself as the sole beneficiary. When I found out, I confronted her immediately, telling her if she didn't cancel it, I'd be taking legal action. I wasn't going to let her milk Rachel's memory for sympathy and money, especially when it was all a scam. Sandra blew up, calling me selfish and controlling, saying I was denying her the chance to grieve. I told her grief didn't mean taking advantage of your own daughter's death for a quick payout. The court eventually ruled in my favor. Sandra's challenge was dismissed, and Rachel's wishes stood. But Sandra couldn't accept that. She kept pushing, sending me letters demanding compensation for her emotional distress and lost family income. It was surreal. I blocked her number, cut contact, and started ignoring any letters that came from her. I sold the house, used the money to pay off the legal fees Sandra's lawsuit had racked up, and moved to a different city. I couldn't stay in that place anymore, not with everything it held. Rachel was gone, but Sandra's constant interference and entitlement had poisoned everything she'd left behind. Sandra still tried to keep tabs on me. I'd get messages from random family members every few months, hinting that Sandra had found forgiveness and wanted to reconnect. But I knew better. Sandra didn't want forgiveness, she wanted access. She wanted control, and as long as she thought she could manipulate me, she'd never stop. So I stayed away, and gradually those messages stopped coming. I lost the love of my life, and nothing could ever replace Rachel. But in her last act, she saved me from a lifetime under Sandra's thumb. Rachel's gift was the freedom to live my life without the toxic cloud Sandra had brought with her every time she showed up. I think that's something Sandra will never understand. She saw Rachel as an extension of herself, something she could control and profit from even after her death. But Rachel had been her own person, her own strength. She was nobody's possession. That's why she left everything to me. To make sure I could live the life she'd wanted for both of us, free from Sandra's grip. Years have passed now, and I'm finally starting to find some peace. I moved on, found a new job, and slowly, I'm building a life that Rachel would be proud of. It's not the life we planned, but it's one I can live with. I still think of her every day, and sometimes I find myself smiling at little memories, things that Sandra could never take away. I know Rachel would have loved to see me standing up to her mom, finally free. Rachel taught me so much, even in the way she prepared for her death. She taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about respect, love, and support. Sandra never understood that, but I do now. I still get the occasional message from a distant relative trying to guilt-trip me about keeping family apart, but I just ignore it. I don't owe Sandra anything, not anymore. Rachel saw to that. Rachel's last gift to me was freedom. Freedom to live a life on my terms, a life where I don't have to answer to anyone's entitlement or demands. In her absence, she gave me the courage to stand up for myself. And though I wish every day that she were still here, I know she'd be proud of the person I've become.